Hi everyone and welcome to My Shiny Toolbox. Tow vehicle. How do you choose the right tow vehicle? I wish I had a nickel for every time I've seen that question on an Airstream forum. I could retire. No, wait, scratch that. Seriously though, I've seen it so many times that I've started ignoring those posts that even have the letters TV somewhere in the title or the starting text. But now that I'm trying to develop a usable and friendly Facebook page, I thought I'd tackle the tow vehicle issue and answer the ever-loving question once and for all. When I started working on the tow vehicle answer, I made the brash assumption that choosing the right tow vehicle and then controlling the weight inside the tow vehicle and your camper would be a breeze. No sweat. I thought, hey, I'm pretty smart. I've been doing this RV thing for years now. I should be able to put together a simple, easy-to-follow guide with basic principles that anyone with more than an 8th grade education should be able to follow. Boy, was I wrong. So today's video I'm calling Picking the Tow Vehicle Ain't So Easy. It makes sense to me now why on so many RV camping forums the same two questions keep popping up. How do I pick the correct tow vehicle for my camper? And how do I manage the weight of my camper so I don't overload the tow vehicle? In this exercise I'm about to show you, I think I've answered those questions, for myself at least. But after all that research, I believe there's one more question that also needs answering. How do I manage the weight of my tow vehicle? Now, these are all great questions to ask, but I found they are not easy nor straightforward to answer because there are so many variables. Like many of you, I've spent some time trying to find the answer on the web, but I usually come away more confused than when I started because the answers usually sound like this.
Mounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings run a direct line with a panometric fan. The lineup consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambifacient lunar wane shaft that
Geez, I think my brain fell out. Let me give you a little personal background. Once upon a time, I was a nuclear engineer. My job was designing systems that reduced the likelihood of a nuclear accident to the point where the accident was no longer feasible. I've tried to apply that principle to my tow vehicle and camper to ensure a towing accident due to overloading is almost impossible. What I've learned in doing the research is that it's not just a matter of picking a vehicle whose towing capacity is larger than your camper's maximum weight. As a matter of fact, it's much more complicated than that. Towing capacity is, of course, a great starting point, but it's not the only limit you should be concerned with. There are 4 others for a total of 5. 5 different weight limits you should know before you tow your camper at interstate highway speeds. Here they are in no particular order. The 5 weight limits you need to know are towing capacity of your tow vehicle, gross vehicle weight rating of the tow vehicle, payload limit of the tow vehicle, the hitch rating on the tow vehicle, and gross vehicle weight rating of the camper. Generically, these apply to any situation where you might be hauling a camper, but in this video, I'm going to show you how I determined those 5 weight limits for our 2014 Ford F-250 Super Duty with the 6.7-liter diesel engine and our 2018 Airstream Classic 33FB. Then I'm going to show you how I keep from exceeding them. So let's get started. Number 1, towing capacity of the 2014 Ford F-250 Super Duty. First, we have to determine the towing capacity. For most tow vehicles, the towing capacity is somewhere in the owner's manual, but it can be daunting to find it. I found mine by using Google and searching for towing capacity of the 2014 Ford F-250 Super Duty. This led me to the 2014 Ford Towing Guide. Now, any reputable manufacturer will have an online towing guide for your tow vehicle, so just insert your tow vehicle's make and model. Here are the towing guides for the big 3 U.S. manufacturers. For our truck, I chose Ford's 2014 RV and Trailer Towing Guide, and on page 16, it shows this. Our F-250 has the 6.7-liter turbo diesel engine and is a single rear wheel axle. So, per the guide, our truck's towing capacity is 14,000 pounds. Now, how do I prevent exceeding towing capacity? If you're in love with your truck, like we are, that one's easy. Just don't choose a camper that, if it were fully loaded, would exceed your tow vehicle's towing capacity. Now, I'll talk about a fully loaded camper in a few minutes. Conversely, if you're in love with your camper, make sure you buy a tow vehicle that has a towing capacity well above the weight of your fully loaded camper. Now, being a geeky engineer, I always add safety margins. Our Airstream, if it were fully loaded, is 10,000 pounds. So my truck has a 40% towing capacity margin, 14,000 versus 10,000. As long as I never overload my camper, I can't exceed the towing capacity for my truck. So I'm good there, right?
Right? Wrong.
Let's go to number 2. Number 2, gross vehicle weight rating of the truck. First, let's determine the gross vehicle weight rating. Well, what the heck is gross vehicle weight rating? GVWR, as it's called, is a confusing term when trying to pick the tow vehicle. So let's define it first. From page 26 of the 2014 Ford Towing Guide, GVWR is defined as the maximum allowable weight of the fully loaded vehicle, including passengers and cargo. Okay, but what's the value? How much weight are we talking about? It turns out that gross vehicle weight rating is pretty easy to determine. These days, all vehicles have a VIN label. That's the white sticker just inside one of the doors that looks like this. The label has a lot of information, but what we're looking for is GVWR. For our truck, the GVWR is 10,000 pounds, as shown on the label. Now, how do we prevent exceeding gross vehicle weight rating? Well, that turns out to be pretty easy too. Don't let your gross vehicle weight, what everything actually weighs, exceed the gross vehicle weight rating. That's the high limit on the weight. So we need to know how much everything actually weighs, but what things actually make up the gross weight of the tow vehicle. From the towing guide, the gross weight of the tow vehicle is the base curb weight plus the cargo weight plus the passenger weight. Yes, we need to know that too. Sorry. Also from the towing guide, the amount of stuff the tow vehicle can carry above the base curb weight is called payload. Payload is defined as the combined maximum allowable weight of cargo and passengers that the truck is designed to carry. It is the gross vehicle weight rating minus the base curb weight. And here's the equation. Well, what's the definition of base curb weight? According to the towing guide, again on page 26, the base curb weight is the weight of the vehicle, including a full tank of fuel and all standard equipment. Well, since the curb weight is set and I can't change it, right, I only need to pay attention to payload. If I never exceed the payload limit, I can't exceed the gross vehicle weight rating, right? Right? So how do I keep from exceeding payload? Well, that's number 3. Number 3, payload limit of the tow vehicle. Determining the payload limit. This is the big one, and the one I'm going to spend the most time on because it's easily overlooked, and I believe it's the easiest one to exceed. First, we need to know exactly what payload means, so let's go back over that. From earlier, we learned that payload is the combined maximum allowable weight of cargo and passengers that the truck is designed to carry. It is the gross vehicle weight rating minus the base curb weight. And again, here's the equation. We know the gross vehicle weight rating from the sticker inside the door of the truck, but we don't have curb weight. Again, the definition of curb weight is the weight of the vehicle, including a full tank of fuel and all standard equipment. But how much is curb weight? Strangely, the number for curb weight is not included in the Ford Towing Guide. You have to find it for yourself. But I'm a quick study, and another Google search showed that the online NADA guide, commonly known as the Blue Book, published the curb weight for the Ford F-250. You just navigate down to weight information, and for our 2014 F-250, the NADA published the curb weight as 6,959 pounds. Now, I'm a skeptic by nature, so I did a little more digging and I found a website called Trusted Automotive Professionals that has a plethora of good information, including a built-in Ford VIN decoder. And hidden deep inside that database, I found that Ford actually does publish curb weight based on the VIN, and there I found exactly the same number, 6,959 pounds. So I feel pretty confident that that number is accurate. So for my 2014 Ford F-250 King Ranch Super Duty, the payload limit is gross vehicle weight rating minus curb weight. So our GVWR is 10,000. The base curb weight is 6,959. So my payload is 3,041 pounds. Okay, now we have a number, but what do we do with it? First, we have to know the things that make up payload. Well, the payload is all the stuff in the vehicle we want to carry with us when we travel. And in my mind, that's people, cargo, hitch weight, tools, pets, extra fuel, and I added that because I have an auxiliary fuel tank that's not accounted for in base curb weight, and anything else you might toss in your truck. Okay, if you're not as confused as I was when I wrote this, let me muddy it up a little more. Ford appears to make figuring out how much stuff we can carry pretty easy. There's another sticker on the inside of the door called the Tire and Loading Information Label that tells you how to keep from exceeding payload. I think it looks like this. From the simple equation above, we got 3,041 pounds. Well, that's not the same number. On the sticker, it says 2,093 pounds. So what gives? And the muddy water gets worse with a little tricky salesmanship. Dealers, if you've ever bought a new truck, like to hand out brochures that tout the maximum rating for the vehicles they're trying to sell. The brochure looks like this. Our F-250 is a crew cab with a 156-inch wheelbase. For that model, the brochure clearly states the maximum payload rating is 3,250 pounds. Here's a close-up from the technical specification section that's from that dealership brochure. But I believe they include the weight of the already full fuel tank in calculating the maximum payload rating, even though the base curb weight already accounts for the fuel. Let's do that math and add the fuel weight back to get Ben's maximum payload rating. So here, I've called it a maximum payload rating sub Ben. That's the gross vehicle weight rating minus the curb weight plus the tank of fuel. Now, since the fuel tank is full of diesel, it's 26 gallons for our truck, and diesel weighs 7 pounds per gallon. That's 182 pounds. So for my calculated maximum payload rating, I get 10,000 minus 6,959, which is the base curb weight, plus the fuel added back in, and I get 3,223 pounds. That's pretty close to the brochure's maximum payload rating of 3,250 pounds, but it's pretty darn confusing for those of us who just want to travel and have fun. All right, so now I have three numbers that might be payload. 3,041 pounds from the simple calculation provided us by Ford, 2,093 pounds from the tire and loading information label provided to us by Ford, and 3,250 pounds from the dealership brochure also provided to us by Ford. Totally confused yet? So now let's toss in a rusty monkey wrench into an already damaged crankcase. What about the hitch weight? Doesn't putting the trailer on the hitch add to the payload? Yes, of course it does. You've seen your tow vehicle lower when adding the weight of the trailer to the hitch, right? So, since putting the trailer on the hitch adds to the payload, we need to talk about it. I'll explain how I prevent from exceeding the hitch limit later, but for now, we need to know what that limit is. And again, we go to Ford's 2014 RV and Trailer Towing Guide on page 25, and here's a close-up. Our truck is in the F250/F350 Super Duty single rear wheel with the 6.7 liter engine row. Since we use a blue ox weight distribution hitch, our maximum tongue load is 1,400 pounds. Okay, so the hitch can hold up to 1,400 pounds, but if I load the hitch to its capacity, could I overload the truck and exceed gross vehicle weight rating? Well, back from that simple equation, payload is GVWR minus base curb weight, 10,000 minus 6,959. That gives you that 3,041 pounds. However, the yellow sticker I showed earlier says the combined weight of occupants and cargo should never exceed 2,093 pounds. So, if I just follow the stickers and limit my passengers and cargo to 2,093 pounds, and since the trailer is obviously not part of passengers and cargo, and I limit my hitch to 1,400 pounds, I get 2,093 plus 1,400 is 3,493 pounds. Adding that back to base curbside weight, I get 10,452 pounds. But wasn't gross vehicle weight rating 10,000 pounds? Well, that's 452 pounds over. What gives? Now, Ford does explain this variance. It's right there on page 16 of the towing guide in the table called F250/F350/F450 Super Duty Pickups Conventional Towing that I showed you earlier. Here, take a look. Did you see it? Yeah, I didn't either until I looked at the fine detail. Here, look again at the note. The important part is where it says, trailer tongue load weight should be 10 to 15% of total loaded trailer weight. Make sure vehicle payload will accommodate trailer tongue load weight and weight of passengers and cargo added to the towing vehicle. My point is, if I simply follow the loading limit on the yellow sticker and the hitch limit from the towing guide, I will exceed the gross vehicle weight rating. Again, the payload limit defined by Ford for the 2014 F250 Super Duty is gross vehicle weight rating minus base curb weight, and that's 3,041 pounds. So the real question is, assuming I allow the hitch to be 1,400 pounds, how much of the 3,041 pounds, in essence the cargo, can I add and not exceed gross vehicle weight rating? I know you probably hate me right now, so adding a few more equations can't make this any worse. So my real cargo limit is gross vehicle weight rating minus the base curb weight, minus the hitch rating, minus the people, and for me, minus the extra fuel. Since I carry extra fuel, I need to calculate a full auxiliary tank. I carry about 75 gallons of fuel fully loaded. That's both the main tank and the auxiliary tank, but the curb weight accounts for 26 gallons in the main tank. So I add about 50 gallons in the auxiliary tank. Diesel weighs just under 7 pounds per gallon, so let's call it 7 pounds to be safe. The fuel weight is 50 gallons of diesel times 7 pounds per gallon. That gives me 350 pounds. Plus the weight of the auxiliary tank, it gives me 435 pounds. So the amount of cargo I can add without going over any limit is the gross vehicle weight rating minus the curb weight, minus the hitch rating, minus the people, minus the extra fuel. And that turns out to be 856 pounds. Finally. Now, how do I prevent from exceeding the payload? So I can add a little over 850 pounds to my truck and not be overloaded if I have a full fuel tank and the trailer is maxed out. But can I actually add that much stuff to my truck? First, I need to know what 850 pounds looks like. It helps me to have a visual, so let me show you how I visualize 850 pounds. Let's do that by comparing it to something familiar, say the Yeti cooler. Per the Yeti website, an empty Yeti 65 weighs 29 pounds, and it can hold up to 52 pounds of ice or 42 cans of beer. We plan on keeping our beer and ice in the camper, so to give myself a little more safety margin, let's see how much one Yeti 65 would weigh if it were full of water. Again, per the Yeti website, the 65 is a little over 1.5 cubic feet inside. Water weighs 63 pounds per cubic foot. So adding that to the weight of the Yeti itself, that's 63 pounds times 1.5, I get nearly 125 pounds. If you've ever tried to pick up a Yeti that's full of beer and ice, you know that 125 pounds is pretty close. So, to exceed 850 pounds, I'd have to put 7 Yeti 65s full of water in the bed of the truck. Now, I don't think 7 Yetis would fit in my truck since I have the extra fuel tank, so let's try another visualization that might be even more familiar. Beer. Beer comes in cases of 24 cans. One case, depending on the type of beer, weighs about 20 pounds. Now, you can Google this and check it out for yourself, but that's true. To make 850 pounds of beer, I'd have to put 42.5 cases of 20-pound beer, or 1,020 beers in the truck. So as a quick comparison, besides ourselves, we carry the following items in our truck. I've given them arbitrarily high values of weight for my geeky conservatism. We carry 4 folding chairs at 10 pounds each. I carry tools, so I'm assuming 300 pounds of tools. 2 dogs for a total of 30 pounds. An air compressor at 30 pounds. An electric Weber, 30 pounds. Plastic folding table, that's 30 pounds, an aluminum workbench, 30 pounds, my sound equipment, 200 pounds, and 1 Yeti full of water at 125 pounds. That gives me 815 pounds of stuff. So I see that with my conservative stuff that I've added, I'm well within the bounds of 850 pounds of stuff in the truck. To prevent exceeding any limits on my truck, I needed to know the gross vehicle weight rating, the base curb weight, the hitch rating, the weight of the extra fuel, and the weight of the people. So to calculate all the stuff, I just subtracted all those things from the gross vehicle weight rating, and that gave me how much stuff I could put in the truck. All right, numbers 4 and 5, the hitch rating of the tow vehicle and the gross vehicle weight rating of the camper. These last two I'm going to tackle at the same time. First of all, let's determine the tow vehicle hitch rating. That one we've already done. It comes right from the Ford Towing Guide. Our F-250 is rated at 1,400 pounds on the hitch. And here's that table again. Determining the camper gross vehicle weight rating. This one's pretty simple too. The camper has a VIN label on the left side, also known as the roadside, near the front. It's very similar to the one on the Ford F-250 and looks like this. For our camper, the gross vehicle weight rating is 10,000 pounds, which is just a coincidence that it is exactly the same number as the truck. So both our vehicles, the camper and the truck, have a gross vehicle weight rating of 10,000 pounds. Now, how to prevent exceeding the camper gross vehicle weight rating and the hitch rating at the same time. For the Ford F-250, we needed to know the base curb weight. For the camper, that value is called dry weight, and we get that from the owner's manual. From page 4-2 of the 2018 Airstream Classic, you get this table. Down about halfway, you see UBW. That stands for unit base weight. For our 2018 Airstream Classic, the unit base weight, 8,261 pounds. And it includes the batteries and two 40-pound propane tanks that are full. We also see that the dry hitch weight, no cargo added, is 1,175 pounds. That's the amount of weight that is felt by the hitch when the trailer is unloaded. So, like the F-250, the payload is calculated the same way. Here's the equation. Payload equals gross vehicle weight rating minus the unit base weight. And in our case, it's 10,000 minus 8,261, which equals 1,739 pounds. So, how much stuff can I add and not exceed both the gross vehicle weight rating of the camper and the hitch weight limit for the truck? Well, first, let's talk about water. If you boondock, you know you have to haul in your fresh water. So I assume I'm always traveling with a full freshwater tank. Airstream makes this a relatively safe assumption to make because the freshwater tank is directly above the axles. If you check out your freshwater tank fill port, you'll find it's directly above and between both axles, or just in front of the front axle, usually on the roadside. I found that the 2018 International is on the curbside. On our Classic, a full freshwater tank is supported by both axles and almost none of the weight is distributed, front or back, but still adds to the total payload. So the amount of cargo I can carry is payload minus the weight of the freshwater. Our Classic has a 54-gallon freshwater tank, and since water weighs about 8 pounds per gallon, the weight of the freshwater in our Classic is 54 gallons times 8 pounds per gallon, which gives me 432 pounds. Water densities vary, so let's call it 450 pounds. So the amount of cargo I can carry is 1,739 pounds minus 450 pounds, the weight of the water, and that gives me 1,289 pounds. So right off the bat, we know we can add 1,289 pounds of cargo before we reach the gross vehicle weight rating of the camper. The tricky part is the hitch. Previously, we learned that the hitch limit for our F-250 is 1,400 pounds. We also just learned that the dry weight of our camper on the hitch is 1,175 pounds. That means I only have 225 pounds that I can add to the hitch before exceeding the hitch weight limit. But my cargo calculation that I just did says I can add 1,289 pounds and still be okay with the camper. So here's where I take care of the hitch limit and the camper gross vehicle weight rating at the same time. First, let's picture my camper as a seesaw, where the frame of the camper can pivot on a fulcrum that's created by the axles, just like a seesaw. Cargo added behind the trailer axles away from the hitch causes the rear of the camper to move down toward the ground and the front, where the hitch is, to want to move up, away from the ground. This means adding cargo to the rear reduces the weight felt by the hitch. But I'm a geeky nuclear safety freak, and I don't want to have to think about how much stuff is behind the axles and how much is in front. So I'm going to assume all of my cargo is in front of the trailer axles. So any cargo weight added to the trailer is added to the hitch. Also, for my geeky contingency's sake, I'll round the 1,289 pound cargo limit down to 1,000 pounds. Now, can I even add 1,000 pounds of cargo to our camper? Well, let's do another visualization. But instead of beer or Yeti coolers, let's visualize what we can actually put in the camper for a 2-week trip. For us, we take clothes, food, paper products, toiletries, cases of beer, an Xbox, linen, pots and pans, stuff in the outside lockers like tools, hoses, liquids, flamingos, blocks, electric cables, etc., and ice. First, we need a visualization of clothes. Here's an example from rinse.com of what 15 pounds of clothes looks like. And I'm going to assume we're taking 4 times this. Food. I found this on the NPR website, but it cites some pretty good sources, so I'll go with it, with a caveat. This graphic says the average American eats 1,996 pounds a year. That's about 5.5 pounds a day. This chart also assumes that the people they're talking about are under 40 and are burning about 2,700 calories a day just to maintain body weight. My wife and I are both 50 plus. Don't ask. So I'll say 4 pounds of food a day is what we consume. Then there's 10 pounds of napkins and toilet paper, 20 pounds of toiletries, we bathe a lot, 120 pounds of beer, my Xbox, hey, a guy's got to have a hobby, 50 pounds of linen, 106 pounds of pots and pans, yes, all clad is heavy, 20 pounds of ice, and 300 pounds of stuff in the outside lockers, and that's the tools, hoses, liquids, flamingos, blocks, electric cables, etc. That gives me a total of 806 pounds. Now that's 806 pounds of, in my mind, highly overestimated cargo weight. Now keep in mind, all the cargo is really distributed pretty evenly throughout the camper, but I don't want to have to think about where I'm putting all this, so I'm going to assume it's all in one place to add the most weight to the hitch. To do this, I'll need one more short equation. It's the last one, I promise. This is the Class 2 lever equation, and it says, in simple terms, the weight felt at one distance from a fulcrum, and we'll call that the front axle, multiplied by the distance from the fulcrum is equal to the weight felt at another point from the fulcrum multiplied by that distance. In other words, if I measured the weight of my stuff and the distance from the front axle and multiplied those two numbers, that would give me another weight actually felt at the hitch. The hitch on our camper is a little over 20 feet from the front axle, so I'll assume it's exactly 20 feet to make the math easy. If all our cargo is placed exactly above the axles, the hitch, if it were part of a perfect lever, would feel none of the weight added. In practice, though, that's not the case because the camper has shock absorbers and springs that move when you add weight. But the upshot is, the closer the stuff is to the hitch, the more weight is felt by the hitch. So the question becomes, how far from the front axle toward the hitch do I put my 806 pounds of stuff so that the hitch feels an extra 225 pounds? Remember, I'm trying to bring the weight that the hitch feels up to 1,400 pounds. Well, here's the lever equation again. So that's the weight felt at my hitch times the distance to the hitch from the front axle is equal to the weight of my stuff times that distance that I need to put it. So rearranging for distance, I get the distance to my stuff is equal to 20 feet, that's the distance to the hitch, times 225 pounds, which is what I want felt at the hitch, divided by the total weight of my stuff, which is 806 pounds. So I need to put my stuff no farther than 5 feet and 5 inches from the front axle. Now I measured this, and this winds up being right in front of the refrigerator. So If I keep my cargo limited to 806 pounds, which I've proven to myself that I can't put that much stuff in, and I spread it relatively evenly throughout my camper, I cannot exceed the gross vehicle weight rating of the camper, and I cannot exceed the hitch limit for the truck. So in conclusion, this exercise has shown me that I need to know 5 weights to be able to pick the right tow vehicle for the right camper. And those are the tow vehicle towing capacity, the tow vehicle gross vehicle weight rating, the tow vehicle payload limit, the tow vehicle hitch limit, and finally, the gross vehicle weight rating of the camper. Once the tow vehicle and the camper are properly matched, the only 2 things I can control are the cargo in the tow vehicle and the cargo in the camper. In my case, I'm convinced that because I picked a tow vehicle that has a towing capacity 40% higher than the gross vehicle weight rating of the camper, and that it's very difficult to overload my camper, I'm convinced that if I manage my cargo to just the things I normally take camping for a 2-week trip, I cannot exceed either the camper's GVWR nor the truck's hitch limit. This means that I can safely tow Mary Jane with any normal configuration of cargo in both the truck and the camper. Now, I know this has been very convoluted, but I thought it important to go through it to convince myself that answering the tow vehicle versus camper question is not as simple as I once thought, and I've picked a pretty compatible combination of tow vehicle and camper size. My apologies for the length of this video, but for me, it's been very informative going through the process of figuring this all out. Now that I've got a pretty good handle on it, if you would like some help in going through this exercise with your camper and tow vehicle setup, please don't hesitate to contact me. Well, here's wishing everyone a safe and happy day. I'm Ben, and this has been My Shiny Toolbox.